In 1850, the government forced the Lake Superior Ojibwe to move from their homes in Wisconsin to Sandy Lake, Minnesota, to collect their annual treaty payment. Hundreds of people died in what is known as the Sandy Lake Tragedy or the Chippewa Trail of Tears. The movement was long, ranging from roughly 200 to 460 miles, depending on where the Ojibwe moved from along Lake Superior. The reason the government forced the move was to get the Ojibwe people onto Minnesota territory. A treaty in 1849 approved the removal of Ojibwe people around Lake Superior, and in February of 1850, the rights of Ojibwe land use around Lake Superior and parts of Wisconsin and Michigan were revoked. Of course, the Ojibwe people refused, remembering promises that were made in a past treaty. This influenced Alexander Ramsey, the Minnesota territorial governor, and John Watrous, a sub-agent, to trick the Ojibwe into leaving, claiming they wouldn't get their money if they stayed. The thousands of Ojibwe people that moved were told to expect payment on October 25, 1850. Watrous didn't even get to Sandy Lake until November 24th. By then, many were suffering and dying from disease and starvation from rations provided by the government that were spoiled and running low. Government hasn't approved the payment, so Watrous couldn't pay them. Instead, he dealt with traders to get a bit of food to feed the Ojibwe until the beginning of December. By then, winter set in and waters began to freeze. Some of the people decided to return home on foot because they couldn't travel by canoe. This resulted in 150 deaths. Finally, by mid-December, the payment came, all according to the government's plan. The Sandy Lake tragedy resulted in roughly 400 deaths. A reported 167 of them were from the stay at Sandy Lake, and another 230 died on the walk home. Watrous and Ramsey's plan broke federal law, but they were unpunished and continued removing natives the same way until their replacement in 1853. As for the Lake Superior Ojibwe, they kept resisting removal and by 1854 signed a treaty promising permanent reservations and on-site annual payment.
The Treaty of 1854 basically relinquished all of the Lake Superior Ojibwe lands in Minnesota's Arrowhead region to the United States in exchange for reservations for the Lake Superior Ojibwe in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Minnesota. The signatory tribes retain a hunting, fishing, and gathering rights within this region. In 1985, the Grand Portage Band filed suit in U.S. District Court seeking a declaratory judgment that the 1854 treaty reserved the band's right to hunt and fish in the ceded territory free of state regulation. The other bands that signed the treaty and resided in the territory subsequently joined the lawsuit. In 1988, the state of Minnesota and the three bands entered into an agreement to resolve the suit. Key elements included the bands regulate member activities, a cross-deputization for enforcement, and the establishment of a judicial service division. 1988, the Tri-Band Authority was established to implement the agreement. In 1989, the Fond du Lac Band withdrew from the agreement. The Tri-Band Authority became the 1854 Authority and continued to implement the agreement for the Grand Portage and Bois Forte bands. Today, the 1854 Treaty Authority continues to implement the agreement for the Grand Portage and Bois Forte bands.